Hello, Angle 54 here today, and today I will be showing you how to read a processor spec sheet. I'm doing two processors. I'm doing this Intel Core i7 and then the AMD FX. I'm going to start with the Intel because I'm an Intel man. The brand is Intel, series is the Core i7, and right now the big series is the i cores. The Core i3 and the Core i5 are also part of this. The model number doesn't really matter too much for you. This K is kind of a big deal, but I'll be going over that down here. The CPU socket type does matter. LGA stands for land grid array, which is little pads on the bottom of the processor. If it says PGA, that means it is pin grid array. So that means it literally has pins that'll go into the socket of the motherboard. And the land grid array and the number have to match up with your motherboard, otherwise it will not work. This number is saying how many pads is on the bottom of the processor, and also how many pads have to go into the motherboard. So this is the chipset, the Core Ivy Bridge. A multi-core is saying how many cores it has, how many physical cores is on that processor. This one has 4 cores, so it can process about 8 things at one time in each of the ALUs, which I'll probably be going over in a different video, but that doesn't matter too much for actually buying it. What does matter is quad core. So the more cores, the better, obviously. The name is the Core i7. This number right here doesn't really matter too much. It's just kind of saying how new it is. This K is a big factor, though. This K is saying whether it's unlocked and ready to overclock. If this K is here, that means you can overclock it. If it's not there, you cannot overclock it. The operating frequency, 3.5 gigahertz. And the reason it gives you 2 frequencies right here is because this one is the base, what it normally will operate at. And this one right here is if you're using so many resources that you need more than 3.5, it'll automatically boost it up to 3.9 or turbo it up, hence the turbo. This DMI is saying like how wide and how much information can go through I'll just say wires. How much information can go through the wires at one time. And this is kind of starting to get to be a bigger thing because you need more and more information that can go through a wire. So that way if they make it bigger and bigger, they can fit more information in it, so it'll be faster. So each L2 catch is kind of the RAM that's built into the memory, or that's built into the processor. So L2 catch is kind of the RAM that's built into the processor. Since it's a 4-core, it says 4 times this amount. So each core has this much memory that it can use. So 4 cores by this much. Then down here, this L3 catch is actually shared by all 4 processors. So each individual processor uses that, and then all the processors can share this information. This 22 nanometers doesn't really affect you guys, and it won't really, you won't notice a difference if it's like 22 or if it's 32 really. 64-bit is what operating system it can support, if it's Windows 7 32-bit or Windows 7 64, and pretty much most of them are all 64-bit. Hyper-threading is just kind of the way that the information is passed along inside the processor. This is a good thing to have, especially if you're going to be doing like higher processing like C++ or any video editing. That's kind of a good thing to have. Integrated memory control speed is what kind of RAM it uses and the speed at which it can go. So it uses DDR3 RAM. That's what it can support at least. And then this is the 2 speeds that it can support. Virtualization technology support is saying if it can handle a virtual PC or not. And obviously this one can. This one actually has a built-in graphics card in the processor itself. So that's what this is saying. And this is saying what kind of graphics is in it. This is the frequency at which the graphics card goes, and this is the max frequency at which it can go. This 77 watt is how much power it's using, and this is something you definitely want to kind of keep an eye on. because the more watts that this uses, the bigger power supply you got to get. So just keep that in mind. And this one comes with a heat sink and fan. So if you are going to do the 3.5, just the base speed, and you're not going to overclock it, this will be fine. The stock one will be perfectly fine. But if you are going to overclock it, you definitely want to upgrade to a nicer one. Alright, so I'm going to do the AMD now. So it's kind of the same thing. AMD, the series it is, the F series, FX series, the socket AM3 Plus, and this is just their version of the socket. So AMD actually uses a pin grid array, so you just kind of want to make sure that this socket will match up with your motherboard. It's the chipset again, and this one, as you can see, has 8 cores, so it's actually double the Intel one, so it can handle more information at one time. So it has 8 physical cores. The whole FX series is unlocked and ready to be overclocked, so that's kind of the big thing with the FX series right now. The base frequency with it not overclocked is a 3.6. It doesn't really say if it has a turbo or not. I'm pretty sure the FX series does have a backup turbo thing, but it doesn't say it here right now. Right here it says 8 megabytes, but what it's saying for the L2 catch is each core has 1 megabyte, and then they just times it by 8, so that's why they put 8 right there. So each core only has 1 megabyte. And then here's the L3 catch, which they all share, obviously, 32 nanometers, which I said earlier doesn't really matter all that much. 64-bit, whether it handles a 32-bit or a 64-bit operating system. The hyper-threading thing again. The visual, so if it handles a virtual PC or not. And the wattage it uses, as you can see, this one uses, the Intel right here uses way less than what the AMD, but technically the AMD is almost more powerful. And it comes with a heatsink and fan. Alrighty, so if you guys like this video, please comment, rate, and subscribe. If you have any questions, as I said, leave a comment or personal message me. Thank you guys very much for watching, and take care.